Hello, nerds! Thank you for watching Generally Nerdy. This is The Week in Nerddom, your twice-weekly source for all that is happening across the entire nerddom in music, gaming, comics, TV and movies, and anything else in between that I find we talk about right here. This week is kind of a big-ish week, so let's hit that intro so we can jump right into the news. Housekeeping. So last week the editing kind of went well, so you're going to continue to see pictures right here above my right, your left shoulder. It looks like my left because it's flipped and things happen. Anyway, so yeah, we're going to try and get back to, because we did this once before, it's just my life has changed and the time to do this editing is significantly less than it once was, as per why we are only doing these twice a week. But that being said, again, Salt Lake Comic-Con is happening in just a couple weeks, so the first week of September we will only be doing one episode. That being said, we've got news to talk about, so let's jump into music news to start things off. First thing we're talking about in music news is Killswitch Engage. Yeah, they just released their newest record, Atonement, and they also just released a new video for a song called The Signal Fire, and this is the song that we've discussed a number of times. We just didn't know the name of it until now. This is the song that features Howard Jones on vocal duties as well. So it's Howard and Jesse together making a religious experience. This video is pretty standard performance video. It's kind of them doing a sound check is what it looks like on stage, and Howard comes out, or it could be their rehearsal space, I don't even know, but it looks like they're trying to make it look like it's a sound check before show. And this song, everything we've got so far from this record, because I have yet to listen to the entire record, but everything we have so far from this record really is a strong indication that this record is going to be fantastic. We've got some really awesome new music in the last few months, starting with Rammstein, and then the Tool song, God, brain fart, the Tool song that just came out, and then the Slipknot record that just came out, and honestly, the new Tyler Childers is pretty great, and just so much is going on in music. This is a fantastic time to be listening. We got word, and this is not news, this is just more evidence that this is a great time in music. Mastodon is in the studio, Clutch has been putting out some really awesome covers, and just all of this amazing music is happening right now, so hopefully it keeps up. But we're gushing too much and we're moving on to the next piece, which is a tour announcement from the likes of Atreyu. This is significant. I mean, obviously I'm an Atreyu fan. I try and catch them as often as possible, and I am trying again as they come through to get interview. I tried last time, we didn't get to the interview, but we did get the press passes so that I could do a review of the show. This time I am trying the same thing, but they're also touring with He Is Legend, another band I'm going to try and interview. So definitely keep your eyes peeled to the channel as that comes through. It's not coming through until November in my area, but you can check their website or their Facebook and get tour dates to see where they're coming close to you. This is honestly a long time coming. I saw Atreyu with Avenged Sevenfold back when I really dug Avenged Sevenfold, which was, roundabout Waking the Fallen, Sounding Seventh Trumpet. And it was right before Backcountry came out. So I think they had released the Backcountry single, but the record had not come out. And Atreyu and Avenged Sevenfold went on tour, and I caught that show. This is another bucket list show, Atreyu and He Is Legend. I have seen both these bands, but seeing them together is just going to be that much more amazing. And once again, we're gushing, so we have to move on. And now we're talking about a very strange piece of music news. David Hasselhoff. David Hasselhoff, for those of you that don't know, because you may or may not be too young to know who David Hasselhoff is an actor who was in probably the biggest things. He's a TV actor, most notably. Knight Rider was the first one, and then Baywatch back in the 90s was the second big thing. Or if you're into the horror stuff and you know Terrence Zdunnik's work, he is in the second Devil's Carnival movie. Yes, the second one. And he also is a singer. Not a horrible singer, but it's just kind of a novelty thing more than anything. He's huge in Germany. The Germans freaking love him, but that's not what we're talking about. That's just kind of a background on who he is. He's 67 years old this year, and he's putting out a new record September 27th. And the reason we're talking about it here is because guest artists on this record include Al Jorgensen and Ministry proper. It's listed as Ministry, though Al Jorgensen by and large is Ministry. So Al Jorgensen from Ministry, which is a very strange combination, Hasselhoff and Jorgensen. Also included as guest artists on this, guitar player from Billy Idol's band, Steve Stevens, and Tracii Guns is on another track. So Guns from LA Guns, and one time from Guns N' Roses, Tracii Guns. And Charlie Daniels is also on this record. Just based on the guest artists, I really feel like I'm at least going to stream this. I don't think I'm going to buy this record, but the very, very strong possibility I'm going to look this up on YouTube when it launches and stream it over the YouTubes or possibly some other streaming service. But like, I just am so incredibly curious as to what David Hasselhoff is going to do with these names specifically. Almost every song on the track listing has a featured artist, but these were just some of the bigger, more noteworthy ones. But then that brings us to our last piece of news, which has to do with Wednesday 13. And for those, again, that don't know, because it's been kind of a while since he's been super relevant, but I figure we're getting close to Halloween, so it makes kind of sense to talk about the fact that Wednesday 13 is putting out a new album. I am a passing fan of Wednesday 13's work. He is the vocalist for the Murder Dolls, a band that he started with Joey Jorgensen, the one-time main drummer for Slipknot, and now is in a plethora of other bands. But Wednesday 13, it's horror, goth, punk, glam, kind of some weird bastard child of those four subgenres of music, of rock and roll. And the two songs, you can find links to them in the description. Links to everything down in the description. The two songs that we've gotten so far off of this new record called Necrophaze, they're more of the same. It's really solid stuff. If any one of those four subgenres appeals to you, then you definitely should check out Wednesday 13. And honestly, these two tracks, Bring Your Own Blood and the other one was Decompose, they're really worth a look because they are exactly that stuff. Apparently, Wednesday feels like this record is going to be less heavy than the record he put out last year, which we talked about briefly, but never really did a review for anything in that. But I don't know that Wednesday's material really varies in heaviness. It's all basically about as heavy as punk rock can be and about as goofy as horror punk rock with the glam and goth elements added into it can be. So like it is that it's banging on all of those cylinders all of the time. So worth a look. It's definitely, if nothing else, it's definitely worth a look just for the spectacle of the whole thing. But that does it for music news. And let's just jump right into TV news. And TV news, we know. First, on TV news, first thing, let's just get up there. Headline is The Boys. Season 2, we know, is in production. And Seth Rogen, being a producer on the show, has seen some of, at least the rough cut of the first episode for Season 2. And he's saying that this season is going to be bigger and bloodier, and their budget sounds like it's going to be more, so they can add a lot more stuff. He says that the universe is going to be growing, but it's not going to be a forced kind of growth. He says it's completely organic, and they're going to be adding more characters. Obviously, if the universe is growing, then characters are going, which means they might be adding, I can't remember, Tech Knight, I think was his name, their Batman analog, which should make for very interesting programming in season 2. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go read the books. Oh boy! I mean, you thought what we got in season 1 was bad. Oh, there are so many other teams in this universe and all of the other things that... Yeah. Okay, so next we're talking about Krypton. If you have been living under a rock, then you haven't heard. Krypton has been canceled. They went for 2 seasons on Sci-Fi. After the completion of season 2, Sci-Fi made the announcement, hey, sorry, Krypton, it's done, we're not doing it anymore, which then also led them to put the kibosh on the Lobo series that they were reportedly working on, and so they kind of came out and said, yeah, Lobo, that was going to be a thing, but now it's not. So, fret not, because that is not the end of these 2 Warner Brothers owned properties. Get it? Warner Brothers owns these properties. Warner Brothers Horizon, I believe, is the name of the branch of Warner Brothers that owns these 2 properties, and they have said that they are shopping out both series to new outlets. And honestly, with the HBO Max out on the horizon, not too far out on the horizon, it only makes sense that they're very likely going to end up on HBO Max. Very potentially also on DC Universe, or on DC Universe instead. But there's no reason to believe that if there is enough fan outcry, nothing is going to happen, much like the Marvel Netflix deal. This DC and Sci-Fi deal, even though it's kind of gone sour, doesn't mean we're not going to see these shows, because, like I said, HBO Max is just right there. They already have all of these pieces in place. All they have to do is get a little bit of funding behind it, and we could very well see a season 3 of Krypton and a season 1 of the Lobo series. I really don't think this is out of the realm of possibility at all. And then our last piece of TV news for the episode is He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. Well, it's not technically Masters of the Universe anymore, but it's Masters of the Universe. Kevin Smith just came out and announced that he is doing another animated series, but this one is not a Marvel property. Well, it's on Netflix, so probably not. But it is going to be the continuation of the story from the 1980s. This is going to pick up exactly where that 80s cartoon left off. According to Smith, everyone is making a return, though voice actors, that hasn't really been laid out just yet, but you know what I mean. All of the characters are going to be returning, and that's kind of awesome. And with Kevin Smith being the showrunner for it, I really have high hopes that there's going to be an attention to detail as far as the continuity goes, because he's just as much a fan of this stuff as we are. So as more stuff comes out about this series, we will be talking about it. It will be brought to your attention, and we're moving on to movies. First thing in movies is the rumor that just won't die, but apparently it's not so much a rumor as just a thing that's never going to happen. So, Jason Momoa just posted a picture on his Instagram talking about how he's so grateful for Zack Snyder and how he owes his career, effectively, the level that his career is at these days, he owes all of that to Zack Snyder because he's the one who cast him as Aquaman. And then he said something at the end of this post that was really kind of like, He said that he has seen the Snyder Cut of the Justice League, and that it is, quote, sick. It's never gonna happen. I wholeheartedly believe if we ever see something that resembles what the Snyder Cut was supposed to be, it's gonna be like in an animated form or something ridiculous, because yes, I'm sure Momoa is used to watching movies, is used to watching cuts of movies that he's in that are without all of the special effects, that have just really roughed in kind of things. but that's never going to get a theatrical release. It's never going to get a video on demand release even. That's just not going to see the light of day for average Joes like you and me, because we don't want to see that. We want to see a finished product. At least that's what the studios think. I'm sure there is a small fraction of nerds out there that would really love to see the roughed in, unfinished version of the Snyder Cut that exists. I'm sure, absolutely sure that it exists, but we're never going to see it. So I don't understand the insistence. Everyone hates Zack Snyder until he gets removed from a project halfway through, which understandably was a bad thing because the movie came out worse than it probably would have had Snyder been in charge of it. But that's not to say that this movie's going to be better or good, I guess is probably more appropriate. So yeah, that's all we've got for that. Next, we're talking about Resident Evil, the reboot that came up 2 years ago. We covered it when it was announced 2 years ago. They are actively, apparently, in pre-production on the reboot movie. As stated by the director, Johannes Roberts, he was talking to Screen Rant, and he said, yes, we are moving forward with this reboot. So what exactly Greg Russo and Paul W. Anderson have attributed to this movie is unknown, though we do know that both of them are no longer associated with the project. So does it have a new screenwriter? Are they going with Russo's script? Who's the producer? Your guess is as good as anybody else's, but it is apparently going to happen in the not so distant future, but probably not till 2021. And this next piece, we're talking about Mortal Kombat, the movie. This actually got announced right after I filmed last week, so this is technically a week old, but it was already after filming, and I didn't have the time to insert and things, so we're talking about it now. Casting announcements. Let's just say them real quick. I'm going to read them off of the screen, so give me a moment. We have Makad Brooks as Jax, Ludi Lin as Liu Kang, Sissy Stringer as Melina, and I apologize for mispronouncing this name, Tadanobu Asano as Raiden. Now, these names, for those that watch a lot of TV things and, you're kind of aware, should not be brand new names, though they are not big names really by any stretch. Makad Brooks is known for being in Supergirl, but he was also in a season of True Blood on HBO. He was Eggs, and he honestly, I feel like when they were talking about casting for this movie, he was one that I didn't think of, just again because he's such a small name. But when they announced it, I was like, that's a perfect casting announcement. He totally has the chops to make Jax a fully fleshed out character. And that's just freaking awesome. And then Ludi Lin, right? Ludi? Yeah, Ludi Lin as Liu Kang. If you don't know Ludi Lin, then you haven't watched the most recent season of The Black Mirror, because he was the Asian avatar in the video game episode where the two guys play the fighting game, even though they don't end up fighting. I'm not going to say more than that. So he was the Asian avatar. He was the Ryu, effectively. He was the Ryu character in that episode. He's done a couple other things, but that's really the biggest one we're going to know him from. Sissy Stringer really has nothing to her credit. She did a short movie that I'm sure nobody has seen yet, and she's in post-production on a different movie that's coming out in 2020. Other than that, I couldn't find anything on her, so I have no idea what she's going to bring to the character of Melina. And then, again, I apologize for not being able to pronounce his first name. Asano, being cast as Raiden, he is a huge actor in the Asian market. He is a huge actor in, like, Japan and China, it looks like. But the only thing we're going to know him from stateside is he was in Thor Ragnarok. And so we've got the casting pieces out. There's one thing I want to address with these casting announcements. First of all, it's actually one thing and twice. Is the quote unquote race swapping of two of these characters. So the first one being Melina, the second one being Raiden. Let's first kick the Raiden one out the door, because Raiden is the god of thunder, the Asian god of thunder, Japanese god of thunder, I think is, I mean, I know it's not real mythology, I know that, but Shaolin being of Japanese or Chinese descent, it makes sense that the god that is over such a thing would be an Asian actor. It was really weird having Christopher Lambert play Raiden. Really, if you look at pretty much any of the 3D versions of Raiden, because I know he was played by a white guy in the 2D era, but in the 3D iterations, he's relatively ethnically ambiguous. And honestly, this actor, even though he is very much, I'm pretty sure, Japanese, is still a little ambiguous, even though you can tell he is of some sort of Asian descent. It just makes freaking sense. All right, so Raiden, it's not really changing the ethnicity of the character, because he really should have been Asian to begin with. But then Mileena, let's talk about Mileena for a second. So, the character has always been represented as white. Sissy Stringer, Sissy Stringer is an African-American, is a black actress. Not a huge deal, though I can understand the issue with that to some degree, because that is an obvious change in the ethnicity, but she's from a different realm, and she is a clone that has some Tarkatan blood in her, so maybe they write it in the story that the Tarkatan blood is what changes some of the visual aesthetics that differentiate her from the original Katana, because she is a clone of Katana. So very likely, very, very likely, they're also going to make Katana Asian. Heaven forbid they're going to have, Again, sometimes I understand the outrage when it comes to changing the ethnicity of a character. In this instance, not so much. And that brings us to the last piece of movie news, which is a big rumor, again from We Got This Covered. They are saying that their source, which is the source that gave them the accurate description of the re-released post-credit scene in Endgame, as well as Robert Pattinson as Batman, that same source is telling them that the first X-Men we are going to see in the MCU proper will be Wolverine. Now, that being said, Kevin Feige has assured us that we aren't going to be seeing any of the X-Men in the MCU for approximately 5 years, being as they're going into Phase 5 and not Phase 4. We still have time for that to work its way out. But if we're getting plans for it this early, maybe they're going to introduce it a little bit sooner than Feige is letting on. That one I'm passing off to you guys. What do you think about that? Does it make sense to bring Wolverine in as the first X-Man because he is also an Avenger? What do you think? Let's talk about that down in the comments, and that's the end of the movie section. We are now jumping into gaming news, and we've got a couple of things to talk about in gaming news, first of which being Death Stranding. Really, this comes from Gamescom. There was a video Hideo Kojima released at Gamescom that gives us a little bit more of the gameplay for Death Stranding, but still really lost as to what the heck the story is. And actually, one of these gameplay elements makes it even weirder, the story part, because in the gameplay, apparently you can weaponize your pee. Not like you put it in a jar and throw it at somebody, but like you whip it out and pee on somebody. This is mystery wrapped in an enigma, wrapped in a question. Like, there is so much about this that we don't know, and we won't know until it launches, but that's just a really weird thing that I had to bring up, because if you missed it, you should go look for those videos. Next, we're talking about Dead by Daylight. Again, we're getting close to Halloween, so we're going to start getting a lot more horror-themed updates in all of the sections. Video games, probably not the least of which, but Dead by Daylight is getting an expansion that is bringing Stranger Things into the game, which actually looks really cool. It's bringing the Demogorgon, it's bringing Nancy and Steve as survivors to the game, and it's bringing a whole new map that is straight out of Stranger Things, the series. So, I mean, if you're a fan of the Dead by Daylight games, this is just a very welcome, very very welcome expansion to that game. So yeah, we're just gonna move on from that because it's great. And then our final piece we're talking about has to do. It's a little meta in that it's more potential and more. We'll just get into it. So Xbox, we talked about how they bought Obsidian, and Obsidian is the company that's giving us the Outer Worlds game. Obsidian also gave us the Fallout New Vegas game, and honestly, some of the best like RPG games that we've ever seen. And then so we speculated that once Outer Worlds came out, that Obsidian was going to be exclusive because they're now owned by Microsoft, that they were going to be exclusively making games for the Xbox. Well, that might not actually isn't going to be the case because the head of games, I believe is what his title is, head of Microsoft Game Studios, Matt Booty, was recently talking with Game Informer, and he said that honestly, the companies that they own that aren't 343 Studios or Microsoft Game Studios specifically, so Obsidian, and there's a number of other ones that Microsoft owns, these companies are not restricted to making only Microsoft exclusive games. So Obsidian very, very likely, and again, all of the other subsidiary companies that Microsoft now owns, very, very likely going to continue the way they have been in just making games for other systems. But that doesn't mean that we're going to start seeing the heavy hitters in the Microsoft exclusivity list swapping over to other consoles. Like, we're not going to see Gears on PlayStation 4. We're not going to see Halo on the Nintendo Switch, or even in future generations, anything like that. Though there have been rumors that something along these lines might be in the works for the next generation. I honestly feel like that's just going to be the biggest mistake they've ever made as far as consoles go. But I mean, they make millions and millions of dollars to make better decisions than I could, so I don't know. I'm not an industry analyst. I just give you the news as it comes out. But that is all we have for gaming news. Now let's jump over to comic book news. And the first thing we have to talk about in comic book news is Lock and Key. We know that the series is in production for Netflix. It's actually heavily in production. We probably will start seeing it. I would imagine they'll post it either at the end of this year or the beginning of next year, somewhere in that neighborhood. That we're going to start seeing those live action episodes. And speculation has been running rampant because it's been a little while since we've seen any books come from Joe Hill, that we might not be getting any more books of Lock and Key from Joe Hill or any of his creative compatriots. But Joe Hill has recently stated that that is not the case. He is actively working on the next book series, the next story arc rather, which is going to be called World War Key, and is going to delve deeper into the lineage of the Locke family as well as their future. So we're going to see some stuff in different timelines in this next one. Deeper in different timelines, I guess, is probably more appropriate. But yeah, so Lock and Key readers, fear not, you will be getting plenty more Lock and Key. It sounds like he has this one pretty much worked out and is starting to kick around ideas for the following story arc already as well. Even though the writing for this one hasn't been finished just yet, it sounds like it's all but there, and he's kicking around ideas for future books even beyond this. So definitely keeping our eyes and ears open for new Lock and Key stuff. And then our next two pieces of news are kind of the same piece of news for two different characters in the DC universe, and how the internet has definitely reacted drastically different to both. So Tim Drake, the one-time Robin, he just got a new costume design. And Catwoman also just got a new costume design. Now, the Tim Drake costume design is a little bland, a little brown, for someone who calls himself Robin still, and from time to time calls himself Red Robin. There is a whole lot of no red in this costume. It's brown, bluish, and gold. So maybe he's gonna change his... I feel like we've talked... No, that was... Yeah, no, I feel like we've talked about him potentially going by a different name. Sparrow was one that was kicked around in the Twitters and things. I just, for all of the good DC had going for it up until a few months ago, they are really doing a lot to squander that. But then on the flip side of that, in a move that I thought would really elicit a lot more negative responses, the new Catwoman costume design is kind of a minor variation from where she already is, full body latex. Now, and depending on who's drawing her, sometimes you can see that the cat suit is multiple pieces. There's a proper top and proper bottoms, and then the cowl is sometimes just a hat, is sometimes 3 pieces in and of itself. So it always varies a bit, but in issue number 14 of the current run, Joelle Jones has changed that a little bit further. So now it is a proper, 3-4 pieces, the suit. And it's a lot more revealing, which is really weird because if you're in full body latex, do you really have to show skin for it to be a sexy thing? And I understand that that's part of Catwoman's character design, right? She is, by nature, she is sexy. She uses that as a weapon. She definitely uses that against her enemies and often against Batman. So like that, I don't have the issue with. The weird part to me is that no one that I have seen, at least so far, has had much of a negative reaction to this. In ramping up the sexuality of a character, you would think that more of the SJW types would freak out that they're showing more skin on this woman when, I don't know, I cannot even begin to explain to you the mindset of the people who are just offended at everything, because this, to me, would have set them off, but that's not the situation. So yeah, I'm passing off these both to you guys. What do you think about these character redesigns? Is the internet right about freaking out only about Tim Drake and not Catwoman? Should they have freaked out about both? Is it just ridiculous that anybody's freaking about any of this stuff? Let's talk about that down in the comments. And that brings us to our last piece of news for the episode, which... first, I owe you an apology, because this has been going on for about 2 months now, and I meant to put it in the week in Nerdom when it happened. I'm fairly certain it was in my notes, and it just didn't make it into the actual... I didn't read it from the notes. I don't know what happened, but the audio drama, Wolverine, The Lost Trail, the second audio drama from Marvel and from this same writing staff and the voice actors and everything. This is the second Wolverine audio drama we've got. Is almost done with being released for free on iTunes or Apple Podcasts or whatever they're calling it these days. So far, I'm about halfway through listening to it. I'm not completely caught up, but it's... So the quality of the story is a little bit better. There is actual acknowledgement of other mutants in the world, so that's a plus, because before, like I said, it definitely felt like they didn't know what a mutant was in Alaska, and that doesn't make any sense considering it's a Marvel story, but that's, again, if you want to have that conversation, there's an episode from about 1.5 years ago that we did about that. Anyway, so the story so far is better, is more coherent, is a little more engaging than it was before. It's just this time the production feels like it's taken a step backwards, because now it's like they forgot what a compressor is, so some of the spoken dialogue just kind of falls behind all of the sound effects and all of the other clutter that's going on in the episode. So you really, I find myself either cranking my stereo or rewinding a couple of minutes just so I can hear what the heck they're talking about, because again, all of the footsteps and the sounds and everything that's going on just washes out that vocal. So it's really... it's kind of a weird trade-off. It's better story, but you can't really hear the story. So go listen to it because it is great regardless. Go definitely listen to it. It's probably better with headphones on. I usually listen to this stuff in my car. So yeah, that's the end of the episode, guys. What did I miss? What should we talk about in the next one? Let me know in the comments down below. If, though, you want to go deeper in the conversation, jump over to the website, generallynerdy.net, and that's where you can find all of the freebies, all of the social media links, everything, including the Patreon. Or you can just go straight to patreon.com/generallynerdy, and you can support the channel there. Or you can find all those links down in the description as well. If you are new to the channel, definitely click the subscribe button. If you like the episode, click the like button. If you are falling behind on your nerd news and you want to catch up, then you can click or tap that box right there to the left of my face to do that. But before we go do anything, guys, always remember that if it's generally nerdy, it's probably here.